Good morning. It is March 22nd, 2019, and just by being here, you have committed to making yourself better, to making yourself a better parent, and to making sure you raise your children so that they can be independent, strong adults who never have to rely on anyone else. So I did a very interesting story yesterday, and I wanted to take the time to follow up on that story and discuss how a parent can use what happened as a teachable moment to make their children strong so that they never have to worry about their children being bullied, discriminated against in the way that I described in the story from yesterday. And it's outside of the box thinking, and I'm not saying it's the correct way to go, what I'm about to present. But I'm saying it's something that should be considered, something that in the real world, I've actually met someone that has done something very similar to this. And if we view everything that happens in our lives, in our children's lives, as teachable moments, real-world teachable moments, to help them develop real-world skills, they will be stronger people. And this is how we change the world from the grassroots level. And you will see by what I lay out to you and how it can change the world. So let's get into the story from yesterday. So, a mom was upset when she found out that her child was overheard in school by school staff stating that he wouldn't date a Muslim girl. Predictably, the school responded how schools respond. He was called down to the principal's office. He was threatened with suspension. I don't know if he's been suspended to this point. I'm sure they made him apologize for stating his dating preferences. Now, it's ironic because the school told him what a lack of morality he had in discriminating, how there was such a lack of virtue in discriminating as the school itself discriminated against the boy. Because whereas a Christian boy will be called down to the principal's office for stating that he would not date a Muslim girl, a dating preference, based on, by the way, not immutable characteristics, but on an ideology, right? Subscribing to the religion of Islam is an ideology, just as being a Christian is an ideology, just as being a Jew is an ideology. So this boy just stated that there are a certain set of values that he looks for in a partner, and he wouldn't date a Muslim girl. But as a Christian, you're called down to the principal's office and you are lectured and told how bad you are. Whereas, for example, if a Muslim student said that they would never date a Christian, well, I think we all know that student wouldn't be called down to the principal's office. Same with the Jewish student, by the way, because these are viewed by the school system as marginalized groups. But of course, this is discrimination. And oh, by the way, there's nothing wrong with a Muslim student having dating preferences to dating Muslims. There's nothing wrong with a Jewish student having dating preferences to dating Jewish people. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with a Christian wanting to date Muslim or a Muslim wanting to date a Christian. People can do what they want. The school has no right to step in and tell you you can't discriminate in your dating practices. For example, every time that a boy asks a girl out on a date, and the girl says no, she is practicing discrimination. Discrimination has been made into a dirty word, but it's not always a bad thing. We want our children to discriminate in their dating practices. Otherwise, they bring someone home with 15 prison tattoos and a record of felonies. So discriminating in dating practices is completely normal. So the child was called down to the principal's office and threatened with suspension. So I asked, how would you respond? And typically what I got was a lot of outrage, that the parents would go down to the school and would let them have it. That the parents would take their children out of the school. That the parents would talk to other parents and write a letter, whatever it would be, right? Your typical parent outrage. But I'm going to propose a different method of dealing with this situation, a method that empowers you and your child throughout the rest of their life. So, the school said the boy had to be called down to the principal's office because this was a teachable moment. How dare this boy discriminate in his dating practices and say, this Christian boy, and say that he wouldn't date a Muslim? Well, I agree with the school. It is a teachable moment. A previous video I did and an article I wrote on my Steemit page was titled, Parents Should Introduce Their Children to Violence. Now, don't be thrown off by the title. That doesn't mean parents should hit their children. I actually state in the article that parents should never lay their hands on their child. The home should be a safe place. The home should be a place that a child knows that they don't have to worry, that they are comforted. But it's a parent's job to introduce a child to the realities of the world. So basically my thesis was that at 2 years old, a child should be enrolled in MMA fighting, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Shortly after that, they should be enrolled in karate so that they can learn to strike. When they get to second, third grade, they should join PAL wrestling, learn to wrestle, learn to engage physically against another person, because like it or not, physicality is an important part of life, especially for a young male. So as a parent, it's your job to introduce them to that physicality so that when they're 20 years old and they're at a bar with their friends and they run into a bunch of bullies, you know as a parent that your child has an idea of how to defend themselves. And along with that, I said that children from a young age should be introduced to sports, competition, baseball, lacrosse, soccer, whatever it might be, basketball, so that your child is comfortable in knowing what they're capable of doing with their body. They know how to defend themselves, they know how to fight, and they have experience using their body against other people of their age. This way, that if life ever brings up some of the unfortunate situations that life does bring up, including bullying in a schoolyard, a child is very comfortable in defending themselves. They're confident in their ability to defend themselves, and usually it is confidence alone in a person's ability to defend themselves that will keep the wolves away. So the thesis of introduce your children to violence was to make sure your child is strong enough to protect themselves. But in this world, there are many things that people have to protect themselves from, and unfortunately, due to the education system, most people don't know how to protect themselves. But the situation I described, where the boy was called down to the principal's office for discriminating in his dating practices, for saying he wouldn't date a Muslim, well, that provides a great teachable moment. But the teachable moment is not for the school. The teachable moment is for your child. Ways in which your child can fight back. And there are a multitude of ways, but I'm going to get to the one way that I really would go about it, because I met someone who did something like this and I saw how much it empowered their child. And it's something I would have never thought of, something that even at this current moment, I don't know how to do, but I would make sure I figured out how to do it so that my child would always know how to do it. That's why when we educate as parents, rather than relying on the public school system, we make ourselves the primary educators. Our children come out much stronger, much more capable. Now, you say, okay, you want it to be a teachable moment. The first thing you could do is have a conversation with your child. Say, what happened at the school? Did you do anything wrong? Have a long conversation with your child so that they understand how to verbally defend themselves, and send them back down to the school. Basically, you tell your child, yeah, listen, if they suspend you, don't worry about it. I'm proud of you. I want you to go down there and defend yourself. And certainly, that's a good teachable moment, because you're teaching your child that it's okay to push back against authority when you're in the right. This will help your child in life in all situations. When they're in college dealing with professors, when they're out in the corporate world dealing with a boss that's kind of a prick, they need They need experience handling authority so that they know how to push back. But let's say they do that and they still get suspended. They could take it a step further, and this is where you really teach your child to fight back. This is where you teach your child to be strong, so you don't have to worry about not just schoolyard bullies, but bullies in the real world, bullies in the school itself. The principal of the school is the bully in this case, right? What can you do? If anything, what can you tell your child to do? Teach your child to do? Well, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I had an issue in my house with the insulation. My pipes froze. So, I called the contractor down. I wanted to see if there was anything I can do in terms of improving the insulation of my house. I wanted to see what he had to say. And as it turned out, this was a very impressive man. One of the most intelligent people I've ever spoken to, actually. So it's funny how the world brings people together. Thanks, Peter. Well, wait till you get a load of this, because this is a true story, by the way. So I called this contractor down. He came to my house. I said, what can I do in terms of improving the insulation of my house? How should I go about it? So he took a look, and he's, basically he told me what to do. And then I started talking to him about life. And as it turned out, he was homeschooling his daughter, who I believe was about 13 years old. I'm paraphrasing. This is a year and a half ago, a conversation I had. So, don't kill me on the little details. But he said he was homeschooling his daughter. She was about 13 years old, and he was telling me how wonderful homeschooling was. And at the time, I had told him that it was something I was strongly considering in my life, so he was telling me all about it. So he broke out into a story of something him and his daughter had done to show the power of a parent taking control of their children's education. And not just the power in the micro sense of your child being strong, but the reason they don't want parents in control of education. How the school system keeps us dumbed down so that we don't know how to fight back. So he had gotten a ticket. I don't know, it was a parking ticket or a type of ticket from the county. So he went down to the DMV or wherever he had to go, the county office, with his daughter, and they went to pay the bill. But he had the idea of teaching his daughter a lesson in mind, because he was a constitutionalist. He went down with gold. And he told his daughter that according to the Constitution, gold was legal tender, and that they had to accept the gold. So he went down to this office, and he brought his gold, and he attempted to pay, and he was told that they would not take the gold. So they said, "Give me money," and he said no. So he left with his daughter. And then, with his daughter taking the lead to do the research and him assisting, he figured out how to take the government to court, because the government wouldn't accept his payment of legal tender. And his daughter filed legally, and he took the government to court. I told you, this was one impressive mother, you know what. So they took the government to court, and they went through a couple of court proceedings, and sure enough, the government of the United States of America dropped the case and said that he didn't have to pay his ticket. And what he explained was that he understood the Constitution and the Federal Reserve, and the government didn't want to acknowledge that they wouldn't take gold as legal tender. So his daughter got out of this parking ticket because she figured out, her father taught her, I mean, it was his ticket, but you get the point, how to fight back legally. So what I would do is, after my child went down to the school and probably still got suspended, I would do the research with my child and figure out how to file legal suit against the school. Teach your child not only how to defend themselves physically, but how to defend themselves using the full range of legal rights that we have as sovereign citizens in the United States of America and around the world. That is a teachable moment. That is a lesson that empowers a child. You have your child study and research something they'd be very motivated to do as the school is discriminating against them. How to file legally against the school to defend themselves. Now, the school, once they file legally, will undoubtedly back the hell down. That will teach your child a lesson. There are means in which you can fight back against authority that will empower you in life so that you can be a strong, sovereign individual, and you do not have to be bullied in this world that will undoubtedly attempt to bully us. Or, I find this highly unlikely, or the school will refuse to back down, which there's almost zero chance that's the case, but the school will refuse to back down, and you have your child go forward with their legal case of discrimination. Well, that would be a real great scenario for your child because it would pretty much pay for their college. This is how we as parents take control of our children's education and empower them in life. We need to start viewing everything our children do as teachable moments with the objective of making them strong, sovereign, and independent people so that they never have to rely on anyone else. Do you see that this is how you change the world from the grassroots level and make a macro change? Because that little girl I told you about that took the government to court and didn't have to pay a parking ticket, that little girl will one day know how to take the government to court when they are discriminating against white people for the color of their skin, when they are doing all of the things that we know the government does that are violations of the Constitution, when the head of the NSA testifies under oath in front of Congress that the NSA is not engaging in blanket spying of the American citizenry, only to find out a few years later when Edward Snowden did his leaks that the NSA was doing just that. The U.S. government was blanket spying on the U.S. citizenry. That little girl will know how to take proper legal action on her own. That is how you empower your child, and that is how you make society a better place from the grassroots level. Look at the lesson I did. Go back and watch the video I did on Introduce Your Children to Violence. Look at the overall theme of what I was preaching. I discussed it here. You introduce your child to violence at 2 years old. You get them in MMA, you get them in karate, you have them wrestling by the time they're in 2nd or 3rd grade. You get them enrolled in sports so that they understand how to use their body, competition, so that if they are ever involved in a physical confrontation, they have the confidence and the know-how to properly defend themselves. And then when the school, in this situation, bullies and discriminates against your child, first you hold back on your parental instinct to go in and protect your child. You let your child know, you give them the confidence to know that you have my full support, that I am backing you up, that if you get suspended when you go in to defend yourself, not only will you not get in trouble at home, but I will be proud of you for defending yourself against unjust authority. You have your child go into the school and defend themselves against unjust authority. If they are suspended, you do the research with your child so that your child knows how they can defend themselves within the context of the legal system. And you assist your child in filing legally against the school in a discrimination suit so that you get 2 scenarios. One, the most likely scenario, the school will back down and think real hard in the future before they discriminate in any way against your child because they know what your child can do. Or 2, the school actually lets it go to trial, which they won't. They will not. And if they do, your child will file a suit that will pay for their college. Can you imagine what a strong, competent individual this person will be by the time they're 18? We have to fundamentally change the way we are educating our children from the grassroots level. This is how we change the world. This is how we make the world a better place. This is how we take back our country. our countries. I think on Monday I might talk about in-group preferences in Christians, in Judaism, and in Muslims, and how Christians aren't properly teaching their children to defend themselves and aren't properly defending themselves. Yeah, Peter, I'd love to answer some questions now. I appreciate you tuning in. So yeah, no, it's funny. I am, by the way, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. This is my last stream until Monday, so I'm really happy you're here. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Your support means a great deal to me. Can you follow my other pages, please, by the way? I really appreciate it. I'm doing my Classical Learner page on Facebook, which I eventually want to be an online community of parents who talk about the different strategies they use to raise their children. We should be, if we're going to take control of our children's future, we need to do it as a community. We need to rely on each other. Don't rely on me. My child's 13 months old. I don't know everything. I read a lot. I have an idea, but we could do this together. You know, Food Boot Oh Mom, I like the name, and follow Classical Learner on YouTube because eventually I'll be posting there. I'm going to get back to your question, Peter. Greek or Roman classics. It's funny. Actually, I'll answer that in a second. Let me answer Peter first. Okay. So yeah, I'm not a farmer, but it's funny you say that because I grew up in New York. And I always thought I had this picture of farmers that they were these backwards people. And as I woke up and I've gotten older, now all I tell my wife is, she's finishing school, so we're not leaving yet. But the first chance we get, we're going to go down south, and I want to get a farm. Because I think there is logos, there is truth, there is value, there is spirituality in a person having their own land and growing their own food and being independent and being off-grid as much as they can be so they don't rely on outside forces. We spend our time complaining about the government, complaining about the socialism that's creeping in, but we don't spend our time building, and that's what I'm trying to do differently now on this channel. I'm trying to empower people to build from the ground up. So I'm teaching people how to properly educate their children. Ben Franklin was the editor of a statewide newspaper when he was 13 years old. Thomas Jefferson ran a plantation when he was 12 years old. We have quite literally been dumbed down. Our adolescence has been pushed back. We used to grow up at 12 or 13 years old. Now people are 30 years old and they still act like children. So we need to build. We need to change from the grassroots level. And this is how we're going to do it. So I'm not a farmer, but my plan is to become a farmer. And if you are, I have nothing but respect for you, because whereas 6 or 7 years ago I would have said, oh, those backward farmers, now I say those backward suburban people, those backward urban people, they need to get farms, they need to grow land, they need to slow down, stop chasing paychecks, work for themselves, and produce something in this world. You achieve logos when you produce, when you create. If we are God's creations, then we are channeling God when we create ourselves. And that is what I'm trying to do when I'm teaching people to educate their children. And if you're not religious, I don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. Me, myself, I am a Christian, and I do look to God for part of my faith. So that's where I am with that. And thank you, Peter. That means a great deal to me. You know, you get out in this YouTube world, and I'll tell you, you see how we're social animals, because you try not to let it affect you, but views and likes and that thing, it does impact us as people. I'm a human being. And I always try to channel what is right in this world, my correct spirituality, so that I don't focus on likes, don't do things for likes, do things because you love them, do things because you're right. But it always is nice to get positive reinforcement, so I really appreciate that, Peter. So now, food boot omam or boot to mom. I don't quite know how to pronounce that, but classical learner. I love that you asked. Is that Greek or Roman classics? What do you think it is? So one of the things I'm teaching myself this year, because what I do is every year I attempt to teach myself a new skill, because I'm trying to develop in myself what is known as talent stacks. When you read my book, I write a lot about, which I'm writing right now, about my philosophy of education. And basically the philosophy goes like this. You should be working to create talent stacks in your children. And yourself, by the way. You should be doing this in yourself. And what that means is, if you look at a successful person, Scott Adams writes about this in Win Bigly. Take someone like Mark Cuban. They have a certain talent stack, right? Mark Cuban knows computer coding. He sold his computer coding company to Yahoo for $4 billion. That's how he made his money. But if you ever listen to Mark Cuban speak, he talks about how he used to go door to door as a salesman. So he knows computer coding. He knows sales. He'll talk about how he's studied marketing a lot. He's very good at marketing. When he brought the Mavericks, one of the first things he did is he started paying beautiful women to sit all along the front rows of the Maverick games so that the cameras on TV would show, hey, look, there's a lot of beautiful girls at the Maverick games, and then guys would want to go there because it would become cool. So he's good at sales. He's good at marketing. He's good at computer coding. He is quick with a joke. If you watch him on Shark Tank, he's very witty on his feet, and that helps him in social situations. So if you follow his Twitter, he is a master at the skill of persuasion and rhetoric, which I'm going to get to the question with classical learning. He once posed a question on Twitter, right? Mark Cuban supports, I believe he supports, based on his tweets, quote-unquote free college, which it's really taxpayer-funded college. And rather than come out and state he supports taxpayer-funded college, what he did was, and I only know this because I've been studying this, so you could start to identify people that are very good at it. I don't know if I'm good at it, but I could describe it. So what Mark Cuban did was he posed the question, if the college closest to you geographically was free, would you go there? And of course, because people aren't idiots, I mean, I wouldn't want taxpayer-funded college, but if I were going to college and I had the option to go to the taxpayer-funded one, obviously you're going to do that, because why would you take out $100,000 when you could not? I mean, that's common sense. So, of course, everyone in the poll, everyone said, yes, I would go to the taxpayer-funded free college that's closest to me geographically. It's common sense. What he did there, he knew what people's answers would be. But what he did there was he changed the framing so that now they're not answering the question, oh, should it be free? They're just, hey, the college closest to you is free. They're now envisioning that situation, and they're agreeing that they would go. So they're envisioning themselves going to college in that free system and thinking, oh, how great that would be, rather than thinking about, hey, wait a second, isn't he saying that we'd be paying for college in our taxes? So this is framing, this is rhetoric and persuasion. And this is what Mark Cuban is very good at, one of his talent stacks. So when I named classical learner, and I love that you asked, is it Greek or Roman? The purpose of that was the framing. Because most people, if you poll them, will say our education system is broken. And most people have a vision in their mind of a better education system. And whether that's Renaissance education, whether that's Greek education, whether that's Roman education, they have a vision in their mind of what is better. So when I name it classical learner, I'm allowing a person to fill in the blanks of whatever it is that they view as a better education. So I'm actually attempting to use rhetoric to allow the thinker to fill in their mind whatever system of classical learning is better. So that was the purpose behind the classical learner. And I hope I answered it in the broader context of what we should be looking to do in terms of improving ourselves and what we should be looking to do in terms of building talent stacks. In fact, I couldn't build anything with my hands, but in just the last 2 months, I have fixed a ton of things around the house that I know how to do now. I know how to snake the wires through the walls. I put up some nice locks in my house. I've built 3 wood racks to stack my firewood on outside. I purchased a wood splitter and an axe, and I've been cutting wood in my backyard, my property, and putting it on the wood racks that I built with my hand. Each wood rack is getting better. I'm most likely going to build a big shed from scratch. I'm going to build a shed from scratch out of 2x4s. So that includes a floor, the walls, a roof. My child's only 13 months. I'll have him watch right now because he loves to watch me build things. But, you know, if you would have asked my friends a year ago, you know, could I build a shed, they would have laughed. Watch me. Because what I'm doing is I'm building talent stacks in myself. So I'm going to build this shed so that if you think about that from the perspective of a child, a person with the confidence to build a shed from scratch will have the confidence to flip a house one day. And that's the talent stacks we want to build in our children. That's how we want to empower them. So, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Please follow Classical Learner. I'm going to post the link to my YouTube page. And I will post the link to my Facebook page. If you could please follow, I'd really appreciate it. If you did want to support what I was doing financially, you can do so at www.patreon.com/FFRnews. Truth be told, don't look at the side perks of being a member. I haven't been able to keep up with them. So if you want to support me. I appreciate it. If you don't, that's fine too. Support me with likes, support me with shares, support me with tagging your friends. It all makes a big difference to me. I really appreciate it. I think on Mike, how you doing, brother? I was wondering. I was like, you ditched me, man. You would have loved this episode. Go watch it back. I was talking about teaching our children how to use the legal system so that they can defend themselves against authority, which is something that none of us do and something that we all should do. But I was actually about to wrap this one up, but I really appreciate you tuning in, Mike. Guys, as always, power to the individual. Long live liberty. Together we could change the world, and we're going to do it from the grassroots level. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. See you Monday, 7 a.m.